Hi, and welcome to this new episode of the Happy Habits with Celine podcast. My name is Celine, and I'm truly excited and happy that you are here. I hope that you're doing well and that you're learning and growing in life and that you're okay with the situation that has been going on in the world for some time. Today, I'm bringing you a conversation with Jeff, who is an inspirational person in my life and whom I've learned a lot from. And he's sharing with us how he came from being morbidly obese for a large part of his life to a traveling yogi and a yoga and meditation teacher. He's also sharing how he went from studying a degree where he felt stuck and unfulfilled, where he was rather trying to impress and to prove something to the outside world, to living a life of purpose. A life in alignment with what he is passionate about and what he loves doing in his life. And so he's sharing his insights on what to do when you have this inner feeling of there's more to life and that there is unlived potential within you. And I definitely had that moment in my life when I realized this can't be it. This can't be all to life. I think there's more within me and there's more to life. So he's sharing steps of how to unlearn who you are not. Maybe unlearn of roles and identities that you have assimilated and learned as you grew up through society, school, and family. And really giving up what isn't working for you to learn who you are and to live a life in alignment with what you love by following your heart. And that comes with stepping into the unknown. So he's sharing his wisdom of how to do that and how to be in that process of letting go and taking little steps of vulnerability and to allow that process to be messy and uncomfortable. And in the end, he's also sharing his tips for how to start a meditation practice and how to start really connecting with the present moment. That's such a buzzword, be present and all that. But he's sharing how you can actually not only download or know information, but actually practice, embrace, embody, and live this concept. So I'll let you enjoy this conversation. I hope that this resonates with you and that you can take away a lot from it. And I hope to hear from you soon. So Jeff, maybe take us to where you are in the world right now. What is around you? Where are you geographically?
Oh, I'm so excited to share with you. So I'm in Monterrey, Mexico, and I'm living 8 kilometers into a beautiful park called Huasteca. And so I'm going to show you some of the mountains that have enchanted me. Da, da, da,
That's
da.
beautiful.
And it's a really special place. And I've got some good community here, and I like it. I like it for our current world circumstances. It's a bit more free in terms of gathering and people being together and things like that. And I really appreciate that. So that is valuable to me, and I've got abundance of nature and trails to walk on. So that's why I'm here. And I have no particular plan for going anywhere else at the moment. Well, with the exception of one small visit back home to do a course that's online because I want stable Wi-Fi and stable internet. I have good enough Wi-Fi now. I'm telling you, the Wi-Fi could be quite sketchy here. If it's cloudy in the park, it's like the Wi-Fi is like, so
Done.
it's
Yeah.
that
So
good.
where
It's that much nature. When nature goes up, internet goes down, and that's a good correlation.
I
Yeah.
like that. So where's home usually? Or where
Mm.
is you are a traveling yogi,
Yeah.
you're all around the world. But where did you grow
I
up?
I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And so when I say home, that is usually what I refer to. Now, traveling around, leaving home, exploring is has really lent itself to me finding more of a sense of home where I am, wherever that is. And I was here the other day and I looked at the place where I am. It's a beautiful center here. And I was like, I live here. I hadn't had that thought in a long time. It was a pinch me thought, like pinch me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it was interesting, and I have been nomadic for the last 5 years. I left London was the last place I lived, where I was teaching yoga, and I went to India from there. And ever since leaving London, because my visa expired, and I'm grateful for that because initially I was like, oh man, I want to stay here and I love London and everything, and my visa expiring was the catalyst to get me going, and I have kept moving and exploring and learning and discovering and teaching and sharing and all the things I love ever since then, since end of 2016.
That's so interesting. It's interesting that you say you live here and you pause. Is that something positive for you? Is it
Hmm.
something that you would want to be different? Or is maybe COVID something that also helped you to maybe slow
Hmm.
down
Hmm.
sometimes in your
Hmm.
life?
Hmm. It is exactly where I want to be. Like I really think about it. Okay, is there anywhere else I'd want to be? Now, if the circumstances of restrictions and lockdowns and ease of travel were different, the past, I'm usually working on something in Europe around this time and going into the summer, and also going into India for March. So that's where I've been the last 3, 4 years. There's been a pattern of my movements for the sake of retreats, programs, trainings. And because that's unavailable at the moment, this is where I want to be. So when I walk up to the house here and I say, "Ooh, I live here," it's a cool moment. It's a cool moment. It's an interesting moment. So yeah, I just like we are talking about a craft, um, being where I want to be has been a craft that I have been shaping for the last several years, and really letting myself be there. There's a big part of my blueprint, my like real like essence that desires this freedom. And that freedom, that desire for freedom, can manifest in terms of wanting to move places and to be places. Now, it doesn't have to be like that. Freedom really has a lot more to do with the inner landscapes and what's happening on the outside, but it will want to manifest as going where I want to go, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just wanted to ask you what is your definition of freedom?
Mm,
And for me, for a long time in my life, I was defining freedom as also freedom to move around and freedom to choose what I want to do. And now I'm also much more on the internal journey of freedom. But what does that mean to you, internal freedom?
being able to let me be me, that's the biggest freedom. When I you asked me earlier before we got on, how's life? And I said it's so interesting. And I have a lot of um I'm growing so much more in respect and appreciation for everyone's individual journey and the unique expression of how that looks. And so as a coach, as somebody who and a teacher and somebody who wants to support people on their journey of individuality, it's super important that I pay attention to mine and be humbled by the lack of knowing where it's going to go and being in that uncertainty. And on one hand, having all these amazing tools for consciousness and creating a conscious life. On the other hand, for the unknown, the much bigger piece of the puzzle is what we do not know. And so freedom is for me, it's like it's the ability to explore that and to allow myself to be in that and let that unfold. It is the inner freedom is the ability to walk a path of building trust between my head and my heart and trusting that my heart knows everything that it needs already, and the my mind, my beautiful tool of a mind, can be a tool of destruction. It can also be an amazing tool of creation. So freedom is also the exploration of how can I use that tool of mind to serve my heart's purpose. So freedom is in the inner sense is the exploration and the letting myself be who I am. And I say that with the gravity of so much unlearning and continuing unlearning
Mm.
of what I'm not. And so I have such a deep appreciation for that. And freedom is a continued pursuit, exploration, embodiment for me.
Wow, there was so much in there. Let's first, I want to dig deeper into unlearning what is not you.
Hmm.
Because I love the phrase letting you be you, letting finding you be you, but what does that actually mean and what does the unlearning mean? How can people do that?
Yeah. Paying attention. And like it started with meditation was a huge stepping stone. Meditation practice, and yoga practice helping me cultivate meditation practice has been a huge stepping stone in terms of the unlearning process. And what I mean by that is being meditation practice offers me the opportunity to sit, be still, and observe what's going on. And for years, the first 25 years of my life, I was more fully identified with my thoughts, thinking, believing that my thoughts are me and that I am this person and I am this identity. And while still very fortunately, I think there's a solution or an understanding of karma. Like I'm this person with this curiosity to discover, to uncover. And part of that, like if I have that seed of wanting that for myself and me, it's going to naturally fertilize into this process of unlearning. We cannot help it because from our childhood all the way until we figure out some sort of agency as an adult, some sort of individuality as an adult, we're until that moment we're being conditioned by everything that's everything that's a stimulus, everything that's creating an impression from the outside that will be conditioning us until we start to slow down that process. And then there will be a moment of, I'm not these things. And then it can start going backwards. So that process of learning, unlearning, is so much being with myself in terms of observing my thoughts. And for somebody who's new to meditation practice or new to yoga practice, and has this desire for self-development, self-discovery, there's a very important word I used in saying that I would love to revisit because it's the most important word is learn to observe. This word observe myself, my process, and that in itself to take the seat as an observer of one's process, there's an experience there. So just hearing me say it might mean something to you, and there's a universe to that for you to experience, for somebody to experience what I'm saying, to learn to be the observer of oneself. So I know what that means for me.
Mm.
And for so long of my life, I didn't understand what that meant for me. And so I had to embark on the journey, meditation practice, yoga practice, to really find my place as an observer where I can see the thoughts without the identification, without the thinking, the believing that I am those thoughts or I am this process or I am um, any of those things. And in that space, it's pregnated with the opportunity to like, okay, so what am I feeling? What's alive? What's happening right now? More in the present moment. Realizing that, okay, so the things I was taught when I was young, the identity I created around that, does it serve me? One, does it serve? I can choose whether or not it serves me, and it's a recreation of an identity of more
Mm.
that is in alignment with what resonates, with what feels right. And another part of the process of unlearning is becoming sensitive to our emotions, our feelings, our energy, and letting our body, letting our heart guide us in how we manufacture. It's what we do as human beings with the mind. We manufacture meaning in the world, and then we'll orient ourselves in that way. So the more sensitive I've become through these practices, through these energy practices, yoga, um, movement, self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is writing things down, exploring questions, and meditation. Um, it has lent itself to a deeper sensitivity, and sensitivity is one of those really precious things for each person. I mean, that's another individual thing, is how sensitive can you be to what your heart is saying, what your body is feeding back. And in a way, like it could be a very overwhelming experience to realize I've been accumulating and storing all the impressions of my life from what my parents were talking about, what they imparted on me, what society imparted on me, what childhood imparted on me, what university imparted on me. Like all of that stuff is downloaded, and the sensitivity to filter through it and to do the energy work necessary to move it and to become more clear of, okay, so what is my flow? What is me? And so a lot of learning, I realized, learning, a lot of building up the identification based on the external stimulus of our world, our society, can create blockages in what I mean by that flow when life seems effortless and easy and fun, flow state. Like when we have those blockages, it's a great teacher, but we have to become sensitive to them and respond in a way that yields us in a position that allows us to move that energy or to unblock that. And what I say when unblocking is the same thing as unlearning. It's like I had an idea or an energy structure in me that was not me, that was creating some resistance or something like that. So, in a long answer, unlearning is it's a fantastic journey, and it means something to me, and I want for anyone listening to this to figure out what that means for you. Yeah.
That's the perfect sentence to finish with, because I love all you shared. And could you give an example of your life? So what did you unlearn, or examples that is actually not you? And what did you discover what is actually you?
Absolutely.
Or something that gets you into that flow state?
Yes. So I, a big part of my journey is my relationship with my family growing up, the family around me, and particularly my mother, and also the pressure I felt or the needing I felt from society to be something, and in my case, an engineer, or in my case, smart. So I got my need of significance derived from the idea that I needed to be a smart person. And let me explain why that, how that accrued is that growing up, I was in a tumultuous, tenuous, what are these, what other words I want to use? Dynamic of family where there's a lot of, my mother was very unregulated in terms of her emotional state, in terms of her mm, how she would respond to certain situations. And my sister also, who's 8 years older, 7.5 years older than I am, there was a dynamic with my mother and my sister, and of course there's a dynamic with me, and that was basically the family I grew up with the most time. And so in this, what I would say was a stressful environment for me, I turned to food as a medication. So I would eat in order to numb out and to not feel all these emotions, all these overwhelming things that were going on around me. So I use the term dynamic as like, how am I relating with my mother? Am I getting my needs met from a mother in a way that serves and nurtures a child? How am I seeing my sister relate with my mother, and my mother relating also with the other members in my family? And so I was very close energetically to my mom, and this created the need for me to want to numb myself out unconsciously. I wasn't thinking that I needed to do this. It just manifests, and it's like the case for many people is we turn to food as a substance to avoid feeling. And I had a terrific journey with that and peeling back the layers of that. That could be a whole nother podcast. But what I'm slowly getting towards is that I gained a lot of weight. I was incredibly overweight from basically the time I'd say I was 3 or 4 to the time I was 20. I was morbidly obese, and that's been 10 years for me since I lost that weight. And I can really say that I was always this person in that body, and I needed something to be of value to society. At least this is the story I told myself. And so what came from that is, well, if I'm going to be overweight, I have this kind of story of like, well, I have to be smart. And I have to be smart also. My mother is putting the pressure on me that I won't get the love that I need if I don't bring home the grades or be the good boy and everything like that. And so I could still say there's fragments of that structure that are still inside of me. And when I lost that weight, and because I left home and I went to university for engineering, so that was the other part is the need to be smart. I ended up going, wanting to go to the most prestigious engineering school. I wanted to have the best grades. I wanted to have all these things because my identity that I created was that I want to pursue this because it means this, and that's how I created the meaning. The weight loss,
Mm.
the weight loss was an incredible transformation physically, and it also cracked the egg. It cracked the surface of my mental and emotional layers where I started to see different angles of that identity, and it's like, oh, I really fell in love with physical exercise, and I eventually started to teach and lead group fitness programs. So one of the beautiful discoveries through that process was learning that I love to teach, I love to inspire people, I love to speak or present something that resonates with me to people. And so that's what you see me doing now with yoga facilitating trainings, teaching yoga workshops, etc. Whatever it is, I that is really much closer to my what I'd say dharma, my real personality structure that is that I've uncovered for myself is that teaching. And I remember one day walking back from school that okay, my mother had passed away. Leaving home for university was a first really big crack in the facade, the illusion of what I had created as a young adult. And then my mother passing away 5 or 6 years, 5 years later, after I'd got my undergraduate degree in university and I started a master's, my mother passed away, and that was the next huge crack. Now, I want to say, in terms of my relationship with my mother, all the things I talk about now have come from like an understanding of doing some deep work on myself, of understanding where a lot of my tendencies and behaviors are rooted in, and wanting to be in my own power and to dissolve those I use the term energy a lot, but it's like it is energy at the fundamental level, but these understandings of who I'm supposed to be and everything like that, really just being who I am. So when my mother passed away, it was an incredible shift in me because there this person was who I modeled my life, a significant part of it in order to meet needs of needing my mother's love and attention and everything like that. And that's just the dynamic that we had. And when she passed away, it slowly over the course of a year and a half shifted the energy in me because I no longer had this person in my life. Now, I did create another contract. I did create another, yeah, I'll say this word contract with her when she passed away is like, I want to be the best possible person in your honor. um, because when she left this plane and transcended, it's like I felt this sense of permission to really be more myself because I knew that she'd be proud of that. I knew that she was no longer trapped in a way that she thought that I should be an engineer. So that has been a through line for me pursuing my passions and my desires. My mother passing away really started the next shift in my life of paying attention to what I like to do. And when I quit the engineering, it was a very significant moment where I was sensitive enough to the incongruency, the out of alignment sense that this career path was not for me. So I became sensitive. I became aware of that. I let myself see that and entertain the idea of this isn't what I really love. And again, coming back to that seed of curiosity that I'm so grateful that is in me of okay, if this isn't what I love, let me adapt. Let me look for something else instead of feeling stuck. I know that it's a real blessing that I have that because I see people in the world, people that I work with, or people, well, actually not people that I work with, but there's people in the world that are unable to entertain that idea of okay, this isn't working for me. Let's look for something else and let's take action on that. And so I'm really grateful that I have that in me. And so I was walking home from class one day. I was doing a master's degree in engineering, and I was just miserable about something. I'm thinking about how I'm going to fail my classes. I have no um, no motivation for this. And then I looked over to the right, and I saw the football pitch, the field where we do the training. I had created a club of group fitness and everything like that for the university I was at, and I really loved that. So I made my own opportunities to share what I really loved. And I was in my body paying attention to what I was feeling. This is what I was talking about earlier is creating a pathway of trust between paying attention to what I'm experiencing and how does the mind make a meaning of that. And I knew how I was feeling in that moment, dread, fearful, depressed. And then I looked over and I see the field where we do our training, where I've shared what I love with people, and it was just completely different feeling. So it was like from really low to really high, and that moment was a complete fork in the road for me. And I chose this. I had to give myself permission to give up the thing that I had been working for. It was a complete ego death of being an engineer, all the pride that was wrapped up in it, all the I need this six-figure salary. I need this status of engineer, of master's degree student, of all these things to feel enough. That moment started the process of unraveling that. And I know that many people find this moment in their life, and it's a beautiful moment of like, okay, let me go for it. That was the jumping off the cliff. And at the time, it didn't necessarily have to be yoga. I loved sharing. I loved being fit. But I loved also sharing it as a teacher. So that moment was one of the biggest unlearnings where I shed the skin of unlearning is the metaphor of shedding skins is a great metaphor for unlearning.
Mm.
It is okay, what's my next layer? And then the trust, what I was talking about earlier, like the trust, the ability to step into that and embody that because that is the unknown. I was totally going off and I knew engineering and I knew it well enough. I was a great student. I was a great like I wanted to make mommy proud. I graduated with highest honors from one of the most prestigious schools in the world for engineering. Um, I convinced myself through that I could do anything I set my mind to. Now it's time to set my heart to something and live
Mm.
and be alive. So that moment was a pivotal moment of a shedding of skins, and that ultimately I decided in that moment that I need to pursue this whatever at whatever cost. So I quit my engineering program, and that is my incredibly long and thoughtful answer of an experience in my life where I unlearned something, or of unlearning, or of undoing. And it comes, I want to say that also I'm very clear on it for me because I've really paid attention and looked at it, and I've done a lot of my own self-inquiry work, and I want to share, like, it's my passion to share this with people, to help anybody who's wanting to find these discoveries or explore this for themselves. Like, I want to be able to support them in that journey, right? You too. And I, for anyone listening, want you to know it sounds really clear for me because I've put a lot of time and effort and work and energy into looking at this thing so that I understand it, and so that I understand my life. I know how I make meaning. I'm willing for that to be an evolution as well. And also, the desire for me to teach people, to share it with people, has led me to want to be able to articulate it clearly. So, I'm saying all of this so that you can have permission to be in a mess. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, he's had all these breakthroughs, he's had da 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 da, that's great where you are. Be a mess. Be in your mess. It starts there. And I want people to know that I haven't always been so clear on it. Um, and even now, it's like there's transformations in my life where I'm unclear on, but I give myself permission to be unclear in those moments and let it come through and trust.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the unlearning process, it can be beautiful, and it can have very pivotal moments, or it can be messy and uncomfortable. And it can be messy and uncomfortable. So embrace all of it, and I let myself go for it. And the pathway of following my heart has been the greatest. The heart is who we are. I believe that. So when I
Hmm.
follow that, the unlearning is its own natural process.
Yeah. That was so interesting. Thank you for sharing again so many things I could ask you so many questions about.
I'm
But there
I love
is
it.
maybe one thing that really stood out at the end, like this. You said you were pointing out the fear of the unknown, but
Hmm.
kind of seeing different feelings, different associations at the other side of where you were in that point of your life when you're looking at this football pitch, I think it was.
Hmm.
You said it was an ego death, um, but you had this pulling and you decided to do it. And it
Hmm.
was kind of a heart versus head decision.
Hmm.
And I think so many people know that deep down something is not quite right, that there is something more, that maybe they're meant to do something else, but there is this fear. So, how do people firstly deal with this fear of the unknown? Also, kind of letting go of identities, because we love our identities. It's who we are. It's what we attach ourselves to.
Mm.
And also, how do you distinguish between head and heart?
Hmm. I love it. A big discovery, a big insight in something I'm exploring right now is this: we put into our minds what letting go is. And it's like what I've come to see it as is the intellectualization of letting go is like a shoelace trying to untie its own knot. It's like it's only going to make the knot tighter, or it's only going to create another knot or something like this. Because the letting go fully is both, well, it's the idea of I want something different accompanied with the energy, which wouldn't be from the mind. It would be an emotional thing, and an energetic thing. The unknown is in those layers of ourselves that aren't of the mind, because the mind shows us what we know, what we think we know. And so the letting go, uh, it's it's about creating a relationship with, okay, so I have this idea of what I'd like to let go of, and surrendering to the I'll let go when it's gone kind of thing. Like it's like that. And so the very pivotal moment of the ego death is like that was time, even years in the making. And also, it didn't happen in that one. It started in that instance of that decision, and it continued. Like it continued for some months of decoupling myself from entertaining the ideas of how I could use my degree in some meaningful way. I even transferred to a different school in London and studied biomechanics, which is I got to use my engineering degree. And by and large part, I studied that particular field because I was still in the process of letting go of that engineering degree. So, what I want to say about the to the people in fear and the people that have this idea of something is feeling out of alignment, like there's something more for me, and I want to like pursue it. I want to let go, or I want to go into that. So, what is it that you're doing that you love? First, start with that. Like, what is it that you're doing that you love? Because when I look back at it, I took little steps of vulnerability, of like scary steps. It wasn't that big plunge of quitting engineering and going into a field of teaching group fitness that I had in that pivotal moment. It was several, like three, maybe at that point 2 years in the making of, okay, so I lost the weight. I lost the weight and I love group fitness. So I went to a lot of group fitness classes. I went to spinning classes. I went to boot camp classes. I went to yoga classes. I loved it. And realizing that I had this passion. And so that would be the following the heart and what that is like. It's like, what lights me up? Go do that. Go do that. The very next availability that you are able to step into it, go into it. So sometimes we try to solve ourselves like we're a problem, and we make it so much bigger than it is. Of I need to jump off the ledge. Like what? Well, what does that even mean? What's the thing that you really like, and are you cultivating a passion of it? Because what I realized in that moment is that I missed the forest for the trees. This lovely metaphor is like I'm looking at this tree in front of me that is like my life, and it's engineering, and it's this thing, my purpose, my passion. What am I supposed to do? And it's like this big tree, and I'm like, well, where's the forest? Where's the forest? And I just like the zooming out of like, right, there's the forest. Oh, there's these all these other little trees of me doing what I love, and then allowing myself to get more into that. And so that's what I see when people transition from one career to another. And it happens a lot when we go into yoga, when I have students that go through yoga teacher training, or that are doing coaching in this phase of self-development, getting to know oneself, it becomes readily apparent to a lot of people that I'm doing something that that isn't a passion, that isn't that I'm unable to put my full heart into it, because it was there as a tool to make money, and or I did it because I thought I was supposed to, because we got culturally conditioned to believe that this is, life is A to B to C to D. And a lot of people just accepted that conditioning for them and created that life. And then they wake up one day and they're like, ooh, I don't like being here. What can I do? Or, and that leads to some kind of crisis, which is beautiful, because it's like that, then you have that crisis, but the crisis serves a purpose of you, if we can trust it, to being more ourselves. So again, another answer to your question about the difference between head and heart, and being in those moments of intense discomfort, allowing that to catalyze, allowing that to give us permission to search and request for guidance from the universe, whether it shows up in the form of a teacher, whether that shows up in the form of a yoga teacher training, whether that shows up in the form of a friend who wants you to sign up for a marathon next year, like whatever that shows up as, is the trust that, yeah, take that very next step. And that's a big way to dissolve the fear, dissolve the overwhelm, and letting go of I need to fix myself, because there's nothing to fix. It's be the process. Be the process of this discomfort coming up, and being curious about what it can show me, and my what are the things that I love innately, and do I want to make a career out of that? Is that part of my personality as well? I know plenty of people that are perfectly happy making lots of money, and then they're going to retire and do what the hell they want with it. And I know people that are doing the same thing, and they're absolutely miserable. So I've let go, thank goodness. There's a let go as a coach, as a teacher, of thinking people need to follow my path, and thinking
Mm.
people need to see it my way, for them to really know, and to say like, hey, there's people doing the thing that would absolutely kill me, and they're having a ball. And then I see people that are like me, that are doing the thing that absolutely is killing them, and they're making themselves miserable, and they're creating a lot of um, discomfort, disease in their life, because they've have not yet given love to their capacity to explore other options. They're still in this identity, or this perception that life needs to be this way. And oh my goodness, when we create the story of life needs to be this way, it's the most rigid box that we can put ourselves in. So another possible answer for your question is the pay attention to what box you're putting yourself into. What are these are the identities? What box, in terms of who you are in your family, who you are in your community, who you are at your work? What are the boxes that you put yourself into? And it's an easy thing to look at, because it's like, what are the boxes that you think people are putting yourself into?
Mm.
That's the box you're putting yourself into. So when you let yourself think that somebody's putting you into a box, and you're behaving according to that box, that's you putting yourself in that box. And so let yourself be free from that box. That's a great mental. That's a beautiful opportunity for the mind to be used as a tool. And so we can use our mind as a discernment. We can create the story, and have it drag us into the fear, and feel all of that fear there. Or we can with a meditation practice, become an observer of what's happening with the mind, right? What's the mind walking me? What kind of mess am I walking into with these thought processes? And then when we have that opportunity, that's a moment of grace. This is when the mind is being used as an amazing tool that it is, to look at something else, or realize a different perspective. And then that, simply considering different perspectives, I'll feel it in my body. And so that's my heart giving a good feedback of, yeah, nice. Let's explore that feeling, that idea that gives me expansiveness. And then there's this different kind of fear. So there's the fear of the unknown, of things are so much bigger, because it threatens the ego, it threatens these things, it threatens our sense of self. There's that fear. And then there's that really beautiful fear that I would call vulnerability, of taking that step that is in the direction of what we love, but it's a little bit scary, because of the story I still tell myself about
Mm.
myself. But I need some evidence. I need to take some action to rewrite that story, so that I can be congruent, so that I can be in alignment. So it's the difference between thinking about what is aligned, and it can be easy, especially culturally, and the way our society is oriented right now, is so much in mind, the field of mind and thinking and orienting outwards. It's really easy to think what's congruent, and to tell other people what's congruent, into have an idea of how the world should be. The difference between that way of living is, and you and myself and yourself taking the step into that direction, that could be a little bit like, woo, I'm a little nervous about that. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful moment. So trust those moments where you are, however that manifests for you as a vulnerability, it could be asking the person on a date. It could be applying for that job that you want, or it could be volunteering in that field that you love. Um, it could be telling your boss to F off. I need these extra hours that I've been working overtime to put into my passion. Whatever that is, whatever boundary you need to create to give yourself more time in that passion, that could be very vulnerable to start to own that I want the time for this. So many different possibilities for stepping into more of what is an alignment with our heart, but it's also paying attention how the mind and the heart work together is like, what is that consideration that's in my mind that gives me that sense of expansion? What story am I telling myself in my head or to others? And story is an identity that we're creating that keeps me feeling contracted or keeps me feeling safe, especially when I am no longer satisfied with safe. Another thing that comes up with clients and coaching clients is that I want to change, but I really like where I am right now. So what does that even mean? Well, it means that you've started to recognize this idea of there's unlived potential within this life, in this incarnation. So the process of rewriting the story, like you is already a beautiful set piece for your podcast, becomes uh, starting to own it that I want something else, and then let the mind explore, and then the mind feedback to the heart saying, yeah, that's what I really like, or ooh, that's a little bit scary and intimidating, but I want to do it. I want to put myself out there. So these are ways that I reflect that I've noticed in my journey for stepping stones towards the big moment, or it doesn't even have to be a big moment. We can look back over the course of a decade and see, wow, huge transformation without one singular big moment. But it's like when it seems like this, right here, what are the ways we can zoom out? And what are the ways that we can step one step in the direction that our heart is telling us to go? Even if we feel comfortable in the life we are, it's so much worth it to go to step into that unknown, one little baby step at a time. I think every human soul wants that.
Yeah, I love that you see it as a journey and as a process. Because often when we find something, as you said, we want to fix it. We want to straight away, like, now I want to find what I want to do. And now I want to get there. And it is so unsatisfying for us to have that mindset. And once you start seeing things as a process and as a journey, it just makes everything lighter. And we're in an internal process of becoming. So it's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And what I also loved you explaining is that difference between mind and heart. Like, and that our societies nowadays, or maybe in the Western world, is very focused on the thinking mind and on also performing of what you tell of your story and being intelligent and being smart and having the degrees and having the good job, so that we forget our heart. We're not really taught to listen to our heart. And so that for me was a whole process of discovering, well, how do I listen to my heart? It was very hard for me often to know, what do I want? What do I want? What is it that resonates with me? Because there were so many influences looking right and left and comparing, and maybe that's for me. And I also loved you pointing out that it's little steps, because sometimes when we talk about the word purpose, it seems like this huge thing and we need to change the whole world. And it can be something so small. It's really going in the direction of your passion, of where the light is. So very beautiful things here. I want to go a little more into the matter of the mind. And you not being your thoughts, because so many people, they're like, I can't sit in meditation because thoughts just flood in and I can't deal with that. I can't sit with it. So what is that mind, maybe also the conscious and the subconscious mind, and how do we learn to master it?
Mm, lovely question. Versus story coming to mind is when I was 23 or 24 years old, I lost the weight, and there's a this disposition in my personality that is happy, outgoing, enthusiastic, and that's natural to me. Of whether it's happening on the inside or not, a macro picture, a micro picture, I have this personality that people see that is this enthusiasm, and I was not experiencing that on the inside for a long time, even after I lost the weight. Or there's moments where it's like I like what's happening, and then there's moments where I don't like what's happening, and not being able to find making peace between the two. So this also led me to read a lot of self-development books, psychology books, um, spirituality books before I even started getting deeply into meditation practice and yoga practice. And so I downloaded a lot of information from those books without and this is what I know now, without the embodiment of some practice that allows me to experience those things. Namely, and here's the story, being present. So I remember being in the living room with my dad, and I was talking with him about the book I was reading, and I was like, yeah, it keeps talking about the value of the present moment. And I looked at my dad, I said, what's so special about the present moment? It's like, he's like, well, the present moment is everything. And I said, well, I'm here, right? I'm present. Like, what is it? And I completely, in that moment, and now when I look back on it, was fully omitting the idea that my mind could be somewhere else. And so wherever my mind was, there I was, instead of being in this present moment and experiencing that. And so I like to start with that story to tell people, to let people know that I had a moment, or I went up to this point of my life where what I thought of the word present moment I didn't connect with it as an experience. It was just the definition, and this is what it is. And here I am in the context of that definition without the experience of it. And so fast forward a couple of years, and I've gone into meditation. I've started doing yoga practice really consistently. That's another thing, is like doing these things consistently deepens I would say it intensifies the journey of getting connected with with the things I'm talking about at an experiential level. And I started meditating every day. I was a part of an amazing community that I had support and accountability, and I told them this is what I want to do. It made me nervous to tell them that I was going to make these changes in my life. Like, that was one of those moments of stepping into that. Um, yeah, I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna tell these friends of mine what I'm up to, and I'm gonna let go of the story that they'll judge me for that, or that I'll judge me for that, whatever it is. And so I started meditating and practicing meditation. And after 30 days is a beautiful transformational period for sitting consistently 10 to 20 minutes of meditating. After a couple of months, I can start to see the landscape of my mind. In other words, I could see that I have thought patterns, which means that I'm stepping into that role as an observer, that I have thought patterns. Then I go into this thought cycle. It's like pressing play on a movie, and I'll go into that story, and I'll be thinking about that. Whether it's about my relationship with food at the time was a huge one. Binge eating and then exercising to burn off all the calories that I ate was a very uncomfortable phase I went through of a pattern of. Ultimately, that process led me to become more sensitive. So it's like, and I think a lot of people resonate with that. Is like this binge eating, or binge watching, binging on something to avoid the present moment, or to avoid what we're really feeling, and then some sort of reparation or repercussion for that behavior, and that's a very vicious and uncomfortable cycle to be a part of. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because I needed that. It was a beautiful opportunity for me to be in pain so that I can seek the transformation, so that I can be curious about what's different. And again, thank goodness for the orientation that I look for something outside of that, because if we look for it, we can find it. And so then, as I'm going into this meditation journey and I start to see the architecture, the landscape of my mind, my thoughts, I'm becoming the observer. I'm able to watch this. And then I get connected with what is mindfulness. So I read all these damn books. I wanted you to know this, and I got a lot of information, but I wasn't getting the benefit of what they were talking about because it was unintegrated information. I was learning it in my field of mind and intelligence and knowing things like my memory, great, and without the embodiment of whatever that is at an experiential level, I'm still fundamentally disconnected with what it is in essence. And so when I do any podcast, I have to say it's like great that you're getting a lot of value. I really hope you get value from what I'm talking about. And please go on your journey of figuring out what it means to you, because I'm talking about things how they mean to me. And it could be different for you. And I would love for you to explore that and love for you to figure out what that is in your experience. And being really honest with ourselves about what am I just bullshitting about? What is my ego saying it thinks it knows? And that's so humbling to think I know something, and for life to like the universe to come and smack me with some kind of process of like, oh, I really have to go through that to know deeply what that is, and to talk from the depths of my experience versus what I learned from a book. So it's the difference of sharing like what do we know from a book versus what have we lived and felt and embodied and experienced. And again, that's like coming more sensitive. So back to my meditation journey, becoming the observer, connecting with mindfulness as I can use my senses and I can pay attention to what's happening right now with my senses. And by the way, when I use the word pay attention, I mean put my attention to or focus on what the experience is right now of what am I feeling, tasting, hearing, smelling, even thinking. Thinking can become a sense. I can have an awareness of what the thoughts are. And this led myself to, whoa, I'm seeing this tree. These really trippy, hippie moments of like, I've been walking down this street all up in my head, somewhere else, thinking about what I'm going to do this day or what I'm going to eat or what happened yesterday or what's the big problem to solve now. Like these exhausting thoughts processes, and then all of a sudden I realize that I'm doing that. I have the moment of awareness that I'm now in the seat of the observer. Oh, Jeff, this one here is thinking all these things. And that moment of grace is so profound that it disconnects me from that thought cycle and puts me into the present moment. So in a sense, I want to say I disconnected from the disconnection to reconnect to the present moment, and then realize, holy crap, that tree is beautiful. Like, wow. And it's like those moments are so visceral. We feel them in the body. And it's like that when I get out of my head and into my body, it's like a melting. And so understanding the mind in this way of like, it is a very valuable tool that if I know I have a real creative opportunity, I can apply my mind and build an ability to think and see different perspectives and solutions and possibilities. That is the value of the mind. But the mind unchecked will get into its stories and its thought patterns, and we can live there. People can, and I've lived so much of my life, and I still get up in there. I still get up in my head, and I get trying to solve myself as if I'm some kind of problem, or trying to control. It's the mind. out of balance will want to control the situation. It's like, here's the solution. And I become attached to that outcome or fixated on it needing to be that way because that's how my mind sees it making me happy. Whereas the real unknown is that I think that that's what I want. I think that that's what I want. Do I know? Absolutely not. I don't know until I get there. I don't know until I get there. That's why I say, when we're talking about realizing and actualizing our bigger life and unlearning and shedding skins, it is letting myself go there to know, go into the experience to know something other than thinking, because it's the big disconnection is thinking that my thoughts are the reality.
Yes.
Right? It's thinking that my thoughts are the reality versus the experience of what is. So the meditation practice and the training of the mind, or the, I wouldn't even say, I have used the word training of the mind for a long time, but it's like it's becoming acquainted with the mind as it is, rather than the identification, rather than the thinking that I am this thought or whatever it is. So becoming acquainted with the process of the mind and then being able to be an observer. Now that's that we can go into, like, yoga philosophy understands, meditation philosophy understands that the more we connect with our intelligence, higher intelligence within us, is us being able to observe with space from the patterns and repetitions. Because when we give it that space, ourselves that space, we can unravel what isn't ours, what isn't us, what is not serving us. With that space, the energy can move, or the real intellect, the real intelligence can say, that's not serving me. And then what is the need that I'm trying to meet? Like, what's the deeper part of it that I'm trying to meet? And when I can use my mind to explore to the depth of a pattern rather than repeating and being in the pattern or the habit that I'm trying to escape from, the deeper roots of it. If I can get my mind to go deeper than superficial concern of the pattern, and like, what's down below that? Like, what am I trying to get through that behavior? And if I can really meet myself there, deeper and deeper and deeper, allowing our mind to penetrate the layers of ego. So the mind isn't the ego. The mind can see through the ego itself. The observer can. So that's a fact. There's layers of mind we can talk about. And when we get to an acquaintance and a relationship with the higher levels of our mind, we can cut through our own bullshit, which we all got bullshit. Like, we're like living this human life. I'm certain to a degree that we're all going to have some bullshit. I certainly have loads of bullshit that I have to cut through on a regular basis and dissolve that. The mind can dissolve it and see, okay, this is what's going on. And then if we allow that to happen, the solution often just arrives spontaneously. Like, it's just there. It's like, oh, I met myself where I am with my mind and body. I connected the two, or body or heart, I can say. And then I became aligned, and then what I needed was met. So the taming of the mind, the stopping of the thoughts, the training of the mind are all ways that our minds are trying to see itself in a house of mirrors. And so I say, put your butt down and sit and close your eyes and let whatever is happening happen, and just see what's possible with watching it, knowing that there's something to watch as an observer, and then knowing what it's like to get caught up in thought, to get swept away in thought, and then knowing what it's like to notice that, and then come back to the breath and to come back to something where we put our attention to consciously. These are our abilities of getting more acquainted with the levels of our mind, the layers, um, and living with more skill with relation to our mind.
Hmm. I love your answers. It's like we could talk for hours, I think. What I at the beginning, I really love that you said the difference between reading versus being, and before in the conversation you mentioned the difference between talking versus being. Um, and I think that is such a crucial thing to, because we love reading and also consuming podcasts like this. But
Hmm.
unless we put it into practice, it doesn't mean anything.
Hmm.
And I love just how you encourage people to take little steps and to go in there and do it themselves. And so you were advising to just get in there, sit down, close your eyes, see what is coming up. How could people make this? Because people are afraid of their thoughts, right? People are afraid of what is coming up. They're afraid of the emotions, of getting into that
Hmm.
uncomfortable space. So, as a last, I mean, your big tip or really an advice to make this easier or get people excited to get into meditation and sit down and close their eyes, what advice would you give?
Thank you. And um, thank you for listening, for those who are listening and being open and really exploring this question is such a valuable question of what can I do if I feel confronted, if I am afraid of my own unknown, right? If I'm afraid of the skeletons in the closet, or if I'm afraid of my thoughts, right? The biggest part of that is I'll say it just like this, is we don't know what we don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And so it's again the opportunity, and it's a beautiful practice to be in the opportunity of seeing the story I create. Because if I tell myself I'm afraid to sit and meditate because I'm afraid of what might come up, I'm already making a story of what might come up. I'm already making it bigger than it is. And so there's the value of hearing that. And I hope that when you hear that it sets you free to, in that way, that being set free of a deeper understanding of, it's like, oh, right. I am making it bigger than it is, and I don't know what I don't know. So I can go see what is there. And I noticed that for me, it's also the faculty of proving to myself with evidence that my fears, because I have fear, like I do create stories for myself. It is a deep pattern for us humans, and it is something that I've become accustomed to. Is, well, I have to go into that, like I say, and find out that it isn't so big, and that like my tendency to make things bigger than they are is just that. It's a tendency. And I get to prove to myself again and again that, oh, I created a story, and here I became vulnerable to the that fear, and I decided to walk towards it, to really see and teach myself once again a lesson that I was making it bigger than it was. I was making it bigger. I made a story. So how can you empower yourself to trust that you don't know until you know? And that really is the jumping into the unknown in itself. And that very thought articulated creates for me a sense of expansion. It's like, right, I keep forgetting that I don't know, and I keep thinking that I know. And that is the barrier that I can see that the mind will create, the ego will create, because it's the ego that makes them the unhealthy ego, the one that wants to stay safe. It's healthy in a way. It's healthy in that for millions and not billions, but millions of years, we've developed this idea, this deeply, deeply conditioned processes that keep us safe. And then we are able to evolve past that and connect with the present moment that is absolutely everything all at once right now. And realizing that like even the ego, even all of that is a part of this present moment. But it is when we create that disconnection from it, we disconnect ourselves from the expansiveness of everything that is. So going into the fear with whatever your next step is, and coming back to the very comforting thought of, well, what if I'm making a story? Let's see. Let me learn and practice to be more present and observe what really is happening, the reality as it is, and allow yourself to even become a process of paying attention to the stories that we create. Because the more I can pay attention to that, the more clearly the more quickly I can come back to the present moment, realize, okay, I'm afraid to sit with myself. Well, that's the story. Or I'm afraid of what I'll discover about myself if I write about that event that happened in my past. Or what if that memory flashes up? Um, and what if that memory flashes when I close my eyes and I meditate? Whatever that brings up for you, you have to realize that you chose a meaning for that. You in that moment where it was the most intense, likely if you're afraid to experience that again, is you've chosen a meaning for that and that it means something to you, and that's the experience you're recreating with that memory. So you have the opportunity to, as an observer, to reevaluate what happened or what it is that is confronting you, and in that way you can rewrite your story. You can look at it from different perspectives. But until we give ourselves permission to be all that we are, and even with the meanings that we create with it, whether they be damning or otherwise, to let that be, give myself enough permission to be that, and then look at it. Is that true? Is that really true, that meaning I created about that experience or about who I am? Asking the question is incredibly powerful, because when I get myself into the present moment, I realize that everything is, and that everything, that singularly I am everything that is, and nothing I think I am, in a as a contradictory experience. But truly in the present moment, there are no contradictions. It just is. It just is. So
Mm.
allow that to hopefully inspire you listening to, if the hesitancy is there, that's okay. Like, you have permission to explore that within you, and that every human being has a right to their life and their experience of this life. We also have the fantastic capacity to rewrite our stories, to know what we are and what we aren't, and to be curious. Like this is the last thing, is that when I go into a meditation and I create a judgment of good or bad, what I know is if I can shift into curiosity, that judgment no longer exists. So the idea that I'm afraid that I'll sit and I'll have this experience of sitting is I'm judging it already. It's my mind judging it, right? It's saying it's gonna go this way. Versus if I say what could happen, well, I evaporate the judgment. Curiosity and judgment cannot coexist with each other. So what could be versus what I think will happen are two very different visceral and the body experiences. in my approach to going inward. So if I orient my mind to support my going inward with what could be, or simply what is, even better, what is right now, what is right now, versus the story that I'm creating, which is not right now. It's a projection, it's a judgment, it's a disconnection, right? So however we can discover ways to orient ourselves towards curiosity and openness is a very valuable way of approaching discomfort with the unknown.
So beautiful. I think that word curiosity is really puts everything into perspective, makes everything lighter. And
Yeah.
I think what you pointed out in its base is you also just need to do. And by doing, you kind of also prove your mind wrong, or just experience different things and get more into that curiosity. So kind of need to start going and doing. So you have shared so much wisdom with us. It has been very beautiful. Thank you so much. If anybody would like to start a meditation journey with you, how could they do that?
I thank you, by the way. I've got a 30-day program that you can. Will you be able to put links
Yes.
to? Okay, so I'll give you the link for that to access 30 days of meditation. And I have because journaling has been so valuable for me, and what I've referred to as self-inquiry is writing things down. I created a planner that accompanies the meditation program that you can sit and meditate. You have the structure to sit and meditate, and you can also write about what you experience. And so I think that those two combined is a very powerful accountability tool and system for us engaging in our own process. So that is available on my website, which Celine will share the link with you, and I'm very grateful for that. And I have other meditation programs as well that are like catered towards specific uh, specific like things we can do with our mind and connecting with our body. Um, Tools, we'll say tools for getting more into life. Tools for getting more into life. So that's how you could find me. And if you like my voice, you like the meditations because it's my voice.
The voice does make a difference, I find.
Yeah. I keep it really, really approachable in the meditations. Like it's really, I know people who've been meditating for years, they like my meditation. I know people who are beginners, they like my meditation. So it's not about your level of skill or experience with meditation. It's just the practice of bringing the mind to the present moment. That's it. And it can be as simple as that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you. What a
And
pleasure.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. And I am so grateful, by the way, Celine, for you doing your thing and all that you're sharing with the world as well. It has been beautiful to see and experience your coming into sharing more and sharing your wisdom too, which is amazing. And that's what we can all do when we go on this journey. And if we feel called, we can share it. And I'm so grateful for all that came through me on this podcast, the questions you asked, whether I'm sorry if it was rambling at some points. It's like I trust myself to go off on tangents. And also, I'm excited to share that you're going to share with your communities. So I hope it has an impact, and I hope it has it lands with people and inspires them to go do and to engage in life and to be curious and to practice these things.
Beautiful. Those are beautiful last words to finish off our session. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Namago.
So Namago, as Jeff said so nicely in the end of this conversation. Let me know what you could take from it. I will put the links below if you want to contact Jeff, and you can find me on Instagram or Facebook. And I wish you a beautiful day wherever you are and wherever you are on your life journey. If this sparked a little inspiration within you that maybe there's things you want to unlearn and things you want to learn about yourself, and maybe your journey will bring you somewhere else than you thought, then I'm really happy for you, because that's such a beautiful journey to be on and such a fulfilling journey. So I'll leave you with that. Have a beautiful day ahead.